and welcome. You're watching QTV and you are watching the Week in Review. I'm your host, Ade Darame, and across the table I have friend and colleague Mamadou Mbodj. Mr. Mbodj, as ever, welcome to the program.
Cheers, Ade. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And we have Lamidi Sonko doing the signing. And just an apology, because last week none of us were here. And so the whole gang is back this week. For those of you who missed us, thank you for the nice messages. We're back and we're fully functional. So what's on the show, I hear you ask? Well, you'll notice a kind of sub-theme about Gambia Goes Digital. And if they haven't already copyrighted that, then I'll copyright it myself. And we also have President Barrow speaking on a couple of occasions, one about inclusive development and the other about road works that he went to inspect. His Meet the People tour has just finished. Also Guinea-Bissau, we go there and we dig into this very, very curious coup or non-coup that's happened there, and digital economy. They have a kind of digital economy and a one dig once policy that they've just validated, and you're wondering what that's all about. Don't worry, we'll tell you what it's all about. Also, our delegates to the recently ended COP30 in Belém in Brazil have come back and they've given us their views on what exactly they found and what was of particular relevance to the Gambia. Also, on the digital theme, there's a forum to validate a kind of instant payment system. And also related to that, in a way, they're issuing ID cards to civil servants to make sure that they have the right number of civil servants. We go abroad, we go to Senegal, next door, I should say. Charoy massacre, 81st commemoration of that one. And it's been getting bigger and bigger over the last couple of years. Also, the ECOWAS Parliament, they've kind of recently reconvened in Abuja, and of course lots and lots of things happening in the ECOWAS region, Sahel, also Guinea-Bissau, for them to discuss. So these are some of the stories on tonight's program. Well, I mentioned that His Excellency the President has a couple of stories on the program tonight, and the first one is where he talks about inclusive development for Gambians. Was it something that prompted him to say that on this tour? Have a look, have a listen.
Thank you so much. All the facilities needed. The area is very conducive for treatment. So it's a national center. And our minister and the ministry, we are all focused towards making sure that we fulfill our promise to the Gambian people.
President Barrow further stressed the importance of expanding access to quality healthcare for all citizens, noting that the Farado complex will reduce national spending on overseas treatments by providing essential medical services within the country. Ansmane so Nyasi for QTV News.
Mr. Mbodj, His Excellency the President talked there about inclusive development for all Gambians. That specific one was to do with healthcare. But in the lead up to that, I said, you know, was it something that prompted him to say that about being all inclusive? Because of course, earlier in the tour, there was a slightly different message that he gave at one meeting.
Oh, absolutely. That was what we thought, because you take it for granted that the president of the Gambia would come with a development program that would benefit
everybody.
Everybody. He's the president of the Gambia, not the president of NPP.
Quite.
That sort of thing. So that's it. So the first question we asked was, why did he feel the need to reassert inclusivity, something that one should take for granted? Mm-hmm. But again, I think earlier on in the tour, it appears as if, I think that was what I heard, that he was telling certain people that, you know, look at all this development, vote for me, or stuff like that. If you want development in your area, vote for me, and something like that. We all know that the president of a country shouldn't say that.
Indeed. It didn't go down very well.
It didn't go down
There were criticism, and even people who were supporters were slightly embarrassed by it, we have to be honest. And so when he came to this event, he made the statement, and we did wonder whether it was a kind of to roll back on what he'd said about 4 or 5 days earlier about, you know, if you want development, vote for me, and you'll get development in your area. He's the president of all Gambians, and he was very much wanting to make the statement that, look, I'm for everyone. He didn't say, I apologize for what I said,
of course.
But the kind of subtext of what he said seemed to indicate that, you know, he probably thought it was a bit of a misstep to say, you know, if you want development in your area. vote for me. So, seem to have mended fences. But you're right, you're the president of all Gambians, not just those who belong to your party or vote for you. Yeah.
Yes, well, it used to be called maybe he misspoke.
Yes, indeed.
So
indeed.
Try to adjust the narrative,
sure.
the narrative of inclusivity,
sure.
and the narrative of this perceived unevenness.
Well, this is it, because that's been very much the kind of sub-theme of the whole Meet the People tour. Everywhere he's gone, he's made the point that, look, whatever development you're congratulating me for, it's for everybody. It's not just for those who belong to my party. So it was rather curious that it sort of then made that statement about, kind of being specific about, oh, vote for me if you want in your particular area. Yeah.
So it was a good thing that he made that statement, really, and we want you to mean it.
Yeah, quite.
That's
quite,
it.
Yeah.
If you're going to use the rhetoric of inclusivity,
sure.
then make sure that that is reflected in your actions.
Indeed.
And that sort of thing.
Sure.
And then we move on from there. You realize that every region, every community you go to, yes, they will appreciate the things that you've done, but again, they'll have more demand.
Well, this is it. And as we saw everywhere he went.
Everywhere.
People said, you've given us this, now we want this.
Right. That's the nature of development, isn't it? Really,
It never ends.
It never ends,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So which got me thinking, now with this sort of, everywhere, they all have their needs, we all have our needs. How do you prioritize? Because you're never going to be able to provide, to cater to all our needs at the same time. So you need to prioritize.
Sure.
How do we prioritize? And we all know that prioritization is not always transparent, as it were.
And this reminds me of once when I was in Sierra Leone, about a couple of months after Mada Bio became president for the first time. And he gave an interview on AYV TV there. And we were in the kind of green room waiting to go on. And they said, so why is it that this particular development is happening? And he said, well, this is my hometown. And so I want to start there because they say charity begins at home. And I went, oh my God, you're the president of the whole country, not just your hometown. And that's the kind of thing that a president has to avoid, because then even if they were a priority or they deserved it, the fact that you've stated it as being that, oh, it's because it's my hometown, that's where they're getting the development, then of course people will perceive. Because we all see and we know what happened in Kanilai when Yahya Jammeh was in power. The kind of development that was brought there far exceeded what was going on in other parts of the country. And we need to get away from that, really.
The whole country is your hometown.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely.
Really?
When you're the president.
Because
if you keep saying I'm the president of all Gambians, not just those in my party, then of course that has to be reflected in that.
I see. You see what's wrong with our politics.
Yeah, quite.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So then we kind of move on. How do we monitor what you say? And are you honest in what you're saying?
Sure.
Equity is very difficult, really, to measure equity.
Well,
isn't it? So I'm thinking, can we have a kind of, when the government publish a clear and ranked sort of development pipeline?
Yeah.
Then we know, isn't it?
Then
That's
people
what,
can say, now we can track it.
We can track it,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Sure.
I'm not sure, possibly it's out there.
It might be.
But I looked, I simply haven't found
Yeah,
it.
sure.
Possibly we can find it. Sure. But it's important to do that, because it's not simply, you have to help sort of people's perceptions. You see, often it's about perceptions, isn't it?
Perceptions matter.
Perceptions matter.
Yeah.
So you have to deal with that, as it were, trying to make it as equitable as possible. And you do that by giving us information.
Indeed.
And telling us why we are going to start with project A, B, C, or D, and give you the reasons why we do that. Just appeal to our reason, then possibly you'll get our sympathy. Exactly.
I think that's a good way of putting it, but thank you for that, Mr. Mboj. Story number 2, kind of our near neighbor, Guinea-Bissau. It's always been a bit of a troubled country. They've had coups d'etats, there's been instability, they've been accused of being a narco state, i.e. a state kind of run mainly by and controlled by people who deal in drugs, mainly hard drugs we're talking about. And then recently we had what has been described as either a coup or not a coup. What am I talking about? This might give you an idea. Have a look, have a listen.
The delegation, led by ECOWAS chairman and Sierra Leonean President Julius Maada Bio, demanded the full restoration of constitutional order following the 26th November coup, which came shortly after a contested presidential election. The junta installed General Orta Inta Antam as interim leader, defying the ECOWAS's calls to reinstate President Omar Sissoho Embalo and publish the presidential election result. The military junta defended their takeover as necessary to restore stability and proposed a one-year transitional period. According to the junta's foreign minister, João Bernardo Vieira, the transition period will be submitted for discussion at the ECOWAS Conference of Heads of States on 14th December, which will take place in Abuja, Nigeria. In response, ECOWAS has suspended Guinea-Bissau. Suspension bars the country from AU activities until constitutional order is restored. The United Nations has also condemned the coup, demanding the release of detained political figures and urging respect for the 23rd November election results.
Mr. Mboj, they want to go and present to ECOWAS on the 14th, but ECOWAS has suspended them. So it's going to be quite interesting to see whether they are allowed as a kind of special case to present what is their transition. But this case has been getting more and more weird and interesting depending on which adjective you want to use. There's been the whole thing about the election results. Have they been leaked? Were they not possible for publication because all the computers have been destroyed, as we heard? And then on Saturday, we heard he went on TV to say that in spite of everything they had said about why they'd stepped in and had a coup, it was to stop ethnic divisions tearing the country apart. I mean, that just took the biscuit when I heard that one. I thought, here we go. Nobody was aware of ethnic divisions during the election process and the thing, you know, okay, they've released people and some of those who've released have gone abroad into exile. We don't know how temporarily in other countries, but this is a really, really messy one.
Absolutely, you can invent anything. They're like snake oil salesmen, aren't they?
Honestly,
with all sorts of
you know.
Goodluck
Jonathan
called it a ceremonial coup. I think he's giving it what it
because
should.
He was being asked what sort of coup is it, and the journalists were throwing words at him, and he was struggling for the words. And somebody said, "Is this a sham coup? Is it a fake coup?" One of the journalists, he said, "No, it's a ceremonial. I'll call it a ceremonial coup." He said, "In Nigeria, we know about coup d'état. You know, the person who's been coup d'état doesn't then phone the international media, said there's been a coup against me, and giving interviews." He said it is highly suspicious. You know,
but absolutely. And you read other analysts saying that this sort of looked like still unfolding, really. We do not quite know. Looked like a sort of strategic intervention, as it were.
On the eve of results.
That's it. Yeah. So they really didn't want this electoral process to get in the way of the status quo. People, you know, of interest in the status quo, they stepped in and they don't want it. Yes. Of course, Mbalo, do we know where Mbalo is right now? So
yes, he went to
Senegal, didn't he?
Then Côte d'Ivoire, then Brazzaville.
Côte d'Ivoire, then Brazzaville. That's it. And Diaz da Costa.
Yes, that's right.
The last time we heard was in Nigeria. Wasn't it? So things are unfolding, even though now ECOWAS, I think they've been suspended from the decision-making bodies.
That's right. We need to be clear about that. Yeah.
And then they said sanctions might come in if we do not restore the constitutional order.
And release the results.
But this is the key. Yeah, what is the constitutional order? There was an elections. Well, they haven't really released officially.
No, not officially. Quite.
So we really, I do not know. Quite extraordinary here. With the AU, of course, they've got a zero tolerance for this sort of thing. They just suspended them. Whereas ECOWAS, we've been very careful, given our experiences recently, when the three Nigers and others.
That's right.
That's it.
Those three plus Guinea, and now Guinea-Bissau. So we have 5. Yes. Led by military juntas in our sub-region. And you're right, they've been ECOWAS have been treading a bit more carefully because, they were said to have mishandled the kind of Niger, leading to these people kind of leaving it. Who knows, if they put pressure on Guinea-Bissau, they might want to join the alliance of Sahel states. So they're treading very, very carefully as to how they deal with it. And they are going to give them their hearing on the 14th. To put their case.
That's it. And I understand as well that the transition plan they will submit, as it were, on the 14th or immediately after that, and see what happens.
That's right. And I've been watching Televisão Guinea-Bissau, the state TV, every day. And every day they've been bringing people, swearing them in as ministers and heads of civil service departments, and Ntam has been giving statements about how he's going to crack down on corruption, he's going to crack down on graft and and especially the drug trade. Because if people remember, the day after, he'd said that some people were trying to collude with a well-known drug baron to destabilize the country. That was his, and then on Saturday we hear that it's actually ethnic divisions that are, so it's highly suspicious.
Absolutely. But this is the key, Ade. Within all these political borders, we're really still trying to find our feet.
True.
How things might work, you know what I mean? So we are not very stable, as it were. Some are more stable than others, relatively speaking. So ECOWAS should be very careful how you deal with these political entities that were, our institutions are not quite formed yet, really. And then when you have civil administrations, what they do, and we have to say this, really, sort of in principle, you don't really want a coup in your country, because we've seen our experience, that sets you back more than it takes you forward. But again, sometimes you find yourself in a dispensation, as we call it, where you are never going to have free elections.
Quite.
You know what I mean? Even the great philosophers of democracy would tell you that there's a point in which a coup might be legitimate.
Well, indeed.
See, this is really the
which is
key.
why we've seen it welcomed in some of the countries.
This is why it's seen welcome in some of the countries. So unless you have that sort of civic organization, as it were, once in a while you're going to have these coups. So ECOWAS must be careful how they handle this, otherwise it will fracture to a level where it will be powerless, it will have no meaning, and then all sorts of groupings, subgroupings will start to emerge, given this small area, really.
So that's ECOWAS, we hope you're listening. Thank you for that. Now, I said that this week's program, had a kind of sub-theme of digital economy. Well, one of the things that kind of is to do with the digital economy is this kind of dig once policy. It's one that's been adopted in some Western countries, and now we're trying to introduce it here. What's it all about, I hear you ask? This might tell you. Have a look and have a listen.
The National Dig Once policy was developed with support from the Western Africa Regional Digital Integration Program, WADIP, as part of ongoing efforts to advance the Gambia's digital transformation agenda and strengthen the country's digital economy. The policy ensures that major excavation works, roads, water, electricity and sewage simultaneously include telecom ducts or fiber pathways, reducing cost, environmental impact and extending infrastructure lifespan.
That is put in place by players to also share and plan ahead.
The policy sets guidelines for early stakeholder coordination, standardized excavation,
and she was cut in mid-sentence there. Mr. Mboj, as I said, this already obtains in some countries. So in England, for example, there'd been lots and lots of complaints where people would say, oh my God, they're digging up the same road again that they dug up last year. This time it's for electricity. Last year it was for this. It was for the, cable or fiber optic. And so we've kind of learned from that, and we're trying to introduce over there and over here the dig once policy. So when you're about to dig, you contact all the utilities. Are you planning any work in this in the near future? If so, we're doing something. Join us and do it right now. And trying to kind of clean up the mess that we've had to put up with for quite a number of years.
Absolutely. A national framework, whenever you're going to build roads, or you're going to have electricity lines, or switch networks, you do all of that.
That's right.
But again, you add what they call telephone ducts or fiber pathways. You build them at the same time. Absolutely. Right. So, and apparently globally, this is the core of really digital transformation.
I mean, the kind of world leader on this is apparently South Korea, where all the houses now have kind of super fast broadband as standard, because when they were doing it, they rolled it out across the whole country. And at the same time, they did all their electricity and so on, because apparently they also used to have all these electricity wires, and they got fed up of it. Oh no, this should be underground. So they did all of that, contacted all the utilities and said, you know, we're doing this major piece of work. Join us, let's do it now, and then we can forget about it for 10, 15, 20 years, whatever.
Absolutely. That's the problem we face right now, the uncoordinated excavations. So you have all these utility operators which doing your own digging, the damage to infrastructure.
Well, this is it. I mean, for people like myself who travel on the road, Bertil Harding Highway, going towards the airport, we now have to put up with the fact that they're now building a flyover at Sukuta roundabout. When they could have built it when they were building that road. And yet now it's causing a lot of disruption because they've now set up diversions that everybody has to take, and they're not very, very convenient. And exactly the kind of the anti-dig once policy.
That's really. It. Yeah. Joint up policy.
Yeah, and joined up thinking.
Joint up thinking.
Yeah, quite.
This is the key.
Yeah.
So yes, we've seen, to be quite honest, with this ministry, you've had a flurry.
Yeah.
As if of activity, validating this, validating that. Yes, you need to get the legwork, as it were, the groundwork, and then the implementation. We know our shortcomings.
This is it.
When it comes to implementation, we complain all the time for one reason or another. So this is it. But nobody would knock it because you need the groundwork first. Then you move on from there. Seems we're in the right direction.
Yeah, so we're heading in the right direction. Thank you for that, Mr. Amboch. Now, story number 4, COP30 ended a while back, and our delegation, after all the kind of meetings and seminars and workshops they attended there, they had time to sit down, reflect, and give us their reflections on what they saw and heard, and here are just a few of them. Have a look and have a listen.
And specifically, the main issue is surrounding the interpretation of what is gender and a man and a woman. But we are happy, at least finally, even though with a compromise version in terms of the full text, but at least we are able to have the Article 9.1 included. What is Article 9.1 under the Paris Agreement? Is to make sure that at least the developed countries provide the financial support to the developing countries.
Here is Dr. Mfama.
I expressed my disappointment in a way, but optimism for the future. Our disappointment has been that the special needs and special circumstances of LDCs and SIDS is at stake. A lot of countries are basically not trying to recognize this. And we are the only group, least developed countries. From 1992, and Article 4.9 of the convention is extremely clear. It says that all parties shall recognize the special needs and special circumstances of LDCs in the provision of finance and technology transfer.
And we have it. We heard the minister, Rohit John Manjang, and then we heard Damfa there. Both of them talking about, what they got from it. And you and I know that when we spoke to the minister, she was kind of spinning it as a kind of success. Analysts outside kind of took a slightly different view because obviously India, America, and China were not there. They sent representations, but not at the highest level. But nonetheless, they were sort of patting themselves on the back that, yes, we did achieve certain things, including this one about providing finance to LDCs, least developed countries, of which we are one. But Mr. Amboch, what was your take?
It was interesting there. He said he was disappointed, but optimistic. We have to be optimistic. The disappointments will come. They've got this anti-COP, as it were, alliance, coalition, I do not know, the fossil fuel producing countries. And now with the biggest country on earth, the biggest economy, the US, under Trump, they're really not interested in that sort of thing at all. And then even when it comes to the issues themselves, there we had the Minister of Climate Change, Rohit John Manjang, talking about gender. That's going to be really a controversial one.
And it really was quite, I mean, people might not realize this, but it got quite controversial at the thing, because you had some of the kind of more fundamentalists, for want of a better word, countries saying, no, when we say gender, we mean man, woman. We don't want all this Western nonsense about, transgender and so on. And so it became, quite a talking point, and they were quite, kind of sticking. And I'm not sure they came to any kind of agreement on it,
Unlikely. We are a more conservative lot. For us, this gender business, well, we used to call it sex. Remember our forms used to have sex, male or female, that sort of thing. So gender gives a different spin to it. It's a different argument there. So this is the issue. They've agreed on all sorts of things like tripling of adaptation finance. They agreed on that. And they've got something called the Bellum Action Mechanism. They've agreed on all sorts of things. And they want to move away from just negotiations to implementation. Now, how do we do that? The money with some of us, we contribute very little, negligible, almost virtually non-existent. Yet we stand to suffer so much. And then we need help, these developed countries. And then where is it going to come from? It depends on, the countries with money, with power. What are they going to do? And yet, we are often what we call Western countries, but again, we see the politics that's going on there. The fact that they don't like immigration, that's the main dynamic of their politics, but that will also mean that what they spend on others, they wouldn't like.
Well, we all know that almost every country in Europe has slashed their aid budget, and a lot of that aid used to come to LDCs.
So this is it. So would this reality now, would it push us really into a more sort of unified, as it were, group, so that we can tackle this? Well, what is it going to do? How is it going to happen? We were on the cusp of, I do not know what, climate change doesn't care what we agree on, not climate change doesn't care who are the people suffering. Nature is not fair, really. But again, we stand to lose so much damage. So what kind of action would this trigger in us? I do not know, but it's really very serious.
The great imponderable. Thank you for that, Mr. Burge. Now, the next story, story number 5. There was a press release which said something along the lines of no ID, no pay. And who was it directed at? It was directed at civil servants, public sector workers. And some people said it was to do with they'd found yet again more ghost workers. And so now they were saying that if you do not have your ID by a certain date, you will not get paid. I'm not making this up. Have a look, have a listen.
Game changer, I'll say, for everybody within the sector. Fintech companies like myself, for the banking sectors, basically everything within the payment and the digital payment sector. This is a game changer. The future we are looking at really is a point where an average subscriber can choose to pay funds or pay for goods easily without any stress, whether it's cash or cashless.
It's designed to serve as a blueprint for retail payments in the Gambia, outlining the governance, operational standards, and risk management requirements, and the rights and responsibilities of every participant. This validation session is therefore not just a mere formality. It is a critical step towards shaping the future of retail payments in the Gambia.
Now, those of you who are wide awake will realize, hang on, he's introduced the wrong story. That really, I must apologize, was not the story that I introduced. And this one was about us catching up with the rest of the world in terms of instant payment systems, which have existed in many countries around the world for quite a long time. And so that was what that was about, Mr. Burge. GamSwitch are the ones who are doing the kind of getting everybody to work together in a kind of coordinated way. And if anybody wonders what I'm talking about, if I'm in UK, as I was recently, I can go to any cash machine that I see, put in my card and get money. And 99.9% of them, there is no fee. They have some that are attached to kind of corner shops where they charge a fee. But the rest of them that you see anywhere in the streets, regardless of which bank you are with, you put, you pay, you withdraw, and so on. And of course, the other thing is about contactless payments and so on. So we're trying to kind of slowly move and catch up with the rest of the world.
Yes, I think here what we have is that, I may have an Ajib account, but I can use my card in any of the banks. That's because of GamSwitch as well, isn't it? So we should be able to have stuff like that.
That's right.
But with our case, the ghost workers.
Yeah, quite. This is it. And that's
particularly that.
Quite. So we will come back to that when we get to kind of story 6. But you know, this really is about the kind of the GAM switch and the sort of central bank working with this kind of two-way forum to kind of validate the scheme for how we would do the kind of instant payment that you can pay across things, but we'll come to that in story number 6 with the ghost workers when we come back.
Okay, absolutely.
Sure.
How that might help. But this is it. This is the rest of the world. We are all moving into in this direction. The digitalization, as it were, of all really services, as it were. So
you know, I mentioned when I came back from the UK recently that you know one of the things that stood out for me very, very starkly was the fact that lots of shops had signs outside them saying, we no longer accept cash at this establishment, strictly card or contactless payments. And some of them you could only go and collect stuff having ordered it online. You couldn't walk in and pay anything. So it really is, the rest of the world is really kind of moving at a pace, and kind of this is what you know, they've now validated. As you said, you know, for us, we're good at validating, not so good at implementing, but this one should be a kind of really no-brainer, I think, you know, for everybody to get on board.
Can you imagine if I can go to what we used to call the NAR shop, the corner shop or whatever shop, and pay digitally?
Yeah,
with my phone, I just pay and stuff like that. Right, of course, the longer term, that's really where we want to be.
I mean, we already have mobile money.
Yes, we already have mobile money.
And we can pay for, you know, power and all sorts of other things. We can
absolutely.
Yeah.
Really, in most of these mini markets, supermarkets, we should be able to pay with our phones.
That's right.
Really.
Absolutely.
That's really the ideal.
Sure.
So hopefully, you know, once you've got infrastructure in place, and then possibly people will catch on.
Yes,
it always takes time before we catch on, as it were.
Yeah,
but first, make it available.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, make it work.
Yeah.
Then it makes it easier to persuade us to join, to be part of that stream, as it were, within the stream.
Absolutely. So. Thank you for that, Mr. Ambush. So that really was story number 5, and the one that I kind of accidentally, I will admit to that, introduced, we will have after the break. So don't go away, but you've now been alerted as to what it is. Join us after the break, where we'll have 5 more cracking stories. Do not go away.
QCell brings you the future with our ultimate bundles. Enjoy the best voice and data bundle plans in one package. Get unlimited data packages with flexible validity and enjoy what true internet feels like. Get 30 minutes of on-net and off-net calls with 5 gigabytes of data for just $350. Or get bigger bundle packages from 10 gigabytes to 20 gigabytes with over 100 on-net and off-net voice calls and enjoy the fastest internet speed in the Gambia. You can also buy 1-day, 3-day or even 7-day packages and enjoy unlimited data bundles with uncapped speeds. Just dial *343# today and experience the limitless capabilities of the QCell network. *343# should be your favorite code to dial now. For more information, call our customer care on 111. QCell. We innovate, others follow.
Hello and welcome back after that break. And you saw before the break there that Mboj and I, we really are human. We can make mistakes. And I accidentally introduced the next story when I meant to introduce another story. But enough of that. So story number 6, which is the first of the next 5, is to do with the issuing of ID cards to civil service public servants and pensioners, people who are drawing a public service pension. They want to digitize it and they want it to be standardized, and if you don't provide ID, then you will not get paid. It's as simple as that. Have a look, have a listen.
Our main objective is to ensure that every Gambian public servant or civil servant at this stage has a valid ID, because that valid ID is now what is going to be used as the unique identifier in the new HRMIS that we are introducing. So it's very important that civil servants get the ID, because the NIN would be the unique identifier that will enable them to be enrolled in the HRMIS, but also in the payroll module of the HRMIS.
And when is this HRMIS coming into effect?
Yes, right now we are doing the preparatory activities. If all goes to plan, by mid next year, we will finish with the development part, and then the latter part of the year we'll be testing, to see if there are any issues that we need to fix before we start the pilot.
With the facilitation process now complete, PSJAL is urging all public servants who have not yet obtained their national identity cards to do so at any immigration office, stressing the guiding principle, no ID, no pay.
I left that in deliberately, Mr. Mboj, because I wanted this to be a kind of public service announcement almost. And, because people will see this on TV, they'll hear it on the radio. If you are a public servant or you are related to somebody who might be a ex-public servant drawing their pension, it's quite stark. No ID, no pay. They're slowly rolling it out, getting the system in place. But one of the things that they wanted to tackle were kind of ghost pensioners and ghost workers, which we never seem to be able to get rid of, Mr. Mboj.
Absolutely. But for me, my worry there when it's going to roll out, he said, if all goes to plan. See the conditional there, and we all know that the timeline is part of a plan. If I do not have a timeline, as it were, then it is not smart goal setting, we are told. Right. So this is the key. I understand that we have what is called human resource information system, isn't it? That's all part of it. Yes, so that you can have sort of personnel record integrity. We need these things, the leakages.
That's it, yeah.
Really, our systems, they leak so much. So we're hoping that with technology, it will help us, as it were.
It will either solve it or reduce it.
Reduce it.
Yeah, quite.
Absolutely, because we all know that any system is as
people
good as the people. People can find a way, really, if they really are bent on it. It's only that the accountability systems, you put certain systems in place where whether people will be scared to do it. Otherwise, when they do, the possibility of catching them is high when you're caught, and the penalty. These are some of the factors that would make people really think twice before they do certain things. Otherwise, if they think that they can get away with it, they will do it. So absolutely, these are all fantastic. Now make it work.
Indeed. That's
really,
the challenge.
That's the challenge. How do you make it work?
Yeah, quite. Thank you for that. Story number 7, Charoy massacre. I was quite surprised that there were colleagues of mine who had not heard of this. And this probably tells you why in the last 2 or 3 years, Senegal has been making quite a big deal of it. And for anyone else who hasn't or hadn't heard of it, this might tell you. Have a listen to this.
After surviving war and imprisonment, they were denied promised pay and dignity. On December the 1st, 1944, at Charoy, near Dakar, the French army opened fire on these veterans during a peaceful protest over those unpaid wages. France claimed 35 were killed. Some historians say the true number may have been over 300. Though decades have passed, the pain remains fresh. Today's commemoration is a remembrance as well as a call for justice and recognition, without which there can be no reconciliation. In line with this, President Barrow used the occasion to issue a call for an honest teaching of the roles played by Africa's warriors in colonial wars.
An honest teaching. I lived quite a bit of my life, Mr. Mboj, in the United Kingdom, where I was saying to somebody that literally not a day goes by when you will not see or hear something on the radio, TV, and the newspapers about the First, the Second World Wars. It's an impossibility. I dare anybody to live. And the people who they see as heroes are very much kind of in the forefront of people's minds because there will be a book, a film, whatever about them. Less so about ours, particularly those who fought in what were essentially colonial wars. They weren't even our wars, really. I mean, okay, we were not independent, so we had no choice. But essentially, that was kind of European powers fighting each other, and yet we get dragged into it, and yet the sacrifice, the death, and then the injustice of those who survived and were denied pay. And when I was reading this, I found out that one of the reasons why they were denied pay was because the French were saying, well, for the 18 months you were prisoners of war, you weren't fighting, so we're not paying you. I mean, that's how unjust the system was, and that's what they were protesting on when their own colonial people opened fire on them. And now, last couple of years, it's been a big ceremony in Senegal.
Absolutely. But you see, Ade, in Europe, in Britain, this history is very much alive.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Within the culture.
Indeed.
For us, what we do is just once in a while, we have these commemorative moments, and then we come round with the ceremonies and all the rest of it. But it's not really alive in the way we do things. Had they been alive, I think it would have changed actually the way we govern.
Yeah.
So we appeal to our history, we appeal to all sorts of things, yet it is not really guiding, it's not really helping us in how we do things. Yeah, we are just still as nasty with our people as the colonialists were
with us.
Yeah, that is really unbelievable. With the Charai thing, that's it. Just as you've explained there, these people who had fought in the war, but they will come, these colonialists, they came with all kinds of sophistry.
Yeah,
that was pure sophistry.
It really
You are in prisoners of war, therefore you are not fighting for God's sake. That sort of thing.
Honestly,
so this is it. And we even discussed it when President Barrow said that we should learn about our history, we should learn about this and learn about that. My reaction, you know, on this morning. But this is it. How am I to learn about history? What you see? How is it to sort of influence, infuse my current thinking for the better? How does it give me pride in myself and move on? To what purpose? History is not simply a question of accumulating facts.
No. I mean, to give really President Barrow, and I remember saying this at the time, because he did go on to say that what we should learn from it is how to create a just Africa where we treat our most disadvantaged better, and also control our own destiny in terms of our resources and so on. They were fine words, you know, but, you know, do we see it happening? As you're rightly saying, are we doing it? And you know, sadly, I think if it was marks out of 10, the marks will be very, very low.
This is really what our problem is. This is the problem I have with if we constantly bang on, oh, we did this in the past, we did that in the past. Of course, we need to do that, but there's a purpose. How does it propel us forward? Sure. You know what I mean? It's not simply that we can just sit and, you know, during our attire we're talking, we talk about Sumanguru Kante, Sunjata Keita, Mansa Musa. We do all of that, but we never really add on the bit.
And connect.
What do I learn from that moving forward? As it were, I'm not sure whether we are good at that.
And it's a valid point, because in these other countries, the reason they teach it and bang on about it is because it tells you where they came from and how they got to where they are. There's a straight line you can follow.
Absolutely.
And we don't see that with us.
And where do you want to go? What are our values? So with us, we keep on talking about what did that teach us?
And why do we, you know, avoid it or whatever? They're not just glorifying it. You're right. You know.
The whole point of learning from history is really for you to get a launching pad to go forward. When it doesn't help me go forward, to me that kind of learning is sterile.
Yeah, quite. Just academic exercise.
It's just academic exercise. It's not moving the needle at all.
Yeah, quite. Thank you for that. Story number 8, and we recently celebrated the International Day for Persons with Disability. That was on the 3rd of December, and we did a story about it. And of course, we know, or some of us know, about how much thought we give to those who are disabled in our society. Have a look, have a listen.
The EU ambassador to the Gambia, Immaculada Roca I. Cortez, emphasized the importance of inclusion for persons with disabilities.
Inclusion is not only a matter of human rights principles, it's a driver of economic growth and social stability. But we know that policies alone are not good enough. Inclusion is not only a legal duty, it's a moral responsibility. Inclusion is not only a matter of human rights principles, it's a driver of economic growth and social stability. But we know that policies alone are not good enough. Inclusion is not only a legal duty, it's a moral responsibility. It requires that all of us, we challenge prejudice, we listen to people with disabilities, that we design our communities with everybody in mind.
Design things with people's, persons with disability in mind. Challenge our prejudices, lots of things that Madam Immaculada Roca y Cortez said there. Mr. Mboj, one of the things, there are many things that people who live in the West come to Africa, come to Gambia, and they see and they're shocked. And that is, one of them is the kind of visible way in which we treat people with disabilities, persons with disabilities. Somebody who might have just a physical impairment, might be an arm, a leg, or whatever. Suddenly we think they're mentally, sort of damaged as well. And you see them begging, rather than, if you go to the West, they'll be working in an office alongside people who are, for want of a better word, able-bodied. And so every year, sadly, it's one day. But, do people really use it to think about some of these things that she mentioned?
Absolutely, very much connected to what we were talking about. How ideas, as it were, will lead you to action.
Yeah, quite.
These days, we sort of use rights-based, as it were, to deal with all sorts of minorities, subgroups within our community. But I remember Kenneth Kaunda's idea of African humanism. Can I really go back to sort of African humanism so that I can treat everybody equally?
Yeah,
but again, when I explore our norms, our societies, the narratives we have for people with disability, we pity them.
Yeah, quite.
Isn't it? It's more out of pity, or we have all sorts of very strange ideas that maybe they deserve it, a kind of karma, or this is what God's will is. So we have all of these ideas of explaining it away.
Sure.
We need to sort of engage with these ideas. Not the rights-based aspect will come in, but here one is talking about how, as a community, as a society, how do I dig into the norms? How do I influence it? We can see why this rights-based rhetoric is not working. It doesn't seem to be working. Government will come up with all sort of, we've had a conference, workshop, whatever. We've written all sorts of things down, policies, we've validated and all of that. But people's attitudes, they haven't changed.
As I said.
Are we hoping that, 3-4 generations ahead with this rights base it will change? But without the deeper normative, as it were, discussions to really change from within, the one without is going to take a very long time. It's very difficult.
Yeah, and when we were trying to get a new constitution, and we had a discussion on radio, and I said to somebody, for me, the disappointment wasn't about the fact that it failed because of, term limits or anything like that, or whether the word secular should have been there or not. For me, it was how radical it had treated persons with disabilities by what was included in the draft. And I said to them, I downloaded about 7 or 8 other African constitutions, and I said, what was in that Gambian draft isn't in any of these in terms of how you treat persons with disability. And for me, it's failure. That was the biggest disappointment for me about its failure, because had it gone through, it would have been radical for our sub-region, and yet, and that tells you a lot, that really a lot of people, for them, that wasn't the disappointment, that we could have done something radical in that, and revolutionary even. It was about, term limits or no term limits, and other, for want of a better word, nonsense, really.
We threw away the baby in the bathwater. That's really what we did. Yeah. So this is it. If we are really serious about this, where do you begin to tackle it? Go back to school.
Yes, exactly.
How is it reflected in the curriculum? I think that it matters. That is why most revolutionaries, when they take over societies, one of the first things they attack is the education system.
That's right.
That's really where you make people make or break, if you like, people. But we don't really do that, or we give it sort of secondary consideration and that sort of thing. Because really the key thing is, how do you attack the norms? How do you deal with that? That's really where you can have meaningful change. Otherwise, with all these programs brought over by whoever, yes, the organizers, you'll have some money and do all sorts of things, but the people with disability, they wouldn't see a single difference.
This is it, because you have not changed minds.
You haven't changed minds.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mboj. Story number 9. I mentioned earlier that there are 2 stories regarding President Barrow. This is the other one. As part of the Meet the People tour, he's been, checking out various places and various projects. and one of them was in Ibo Town. This is a notorious place if you've ever had to drive there in the rain season in years gone by. He went there and things were slightly better than they used to be. Have a look at this.
It's always a problem of access, during the rainy season. Even during dry season, it's a problem. Rainy season, you already talk about getting a vehicle here. Even if you have your own vehicle, you find a place to park it, and then you walk the rest to your house. But all of that has changed now. You can have access from either way, from Joko to here, or from the street after Babanfati, Kaiko Street, coming down. And it has done a lot of changes in terms of the activities of people and cutting traffic time.
From sandy and unplayable ground, this famous field, which hosted footballing greats, notably Scorpions captain Musa Barrow and English Premier League star Yankuba Minte, has been transformed into a top-quality sports complex catering for various disciplines. Suleiman Jame Nam for Bununka Kunda expresses gratitude to the government for what he described as a legacy project. President Barrow reiterates his commitment to improving the country's infrastructure, revealing plans to construct similar projects.
And there you have a couple of projects that, if we go back to our earlier President Barrow story, benefits everybody, not just some. And I brought it because the President had said that this time he'd gone with a book and a list of projects to visit, and he wanted to kind of tick and see them for himself, rather than have somebody, as he said at the departure at Banjul, he said, rather than somebody give me a dossier and I read about it, I want to see it. And there he saw it. Ibo Town, as I mentioned, you and I know, and others may know, used to be impassable in the rain season, and now that seems to have gone.
Oh, absolutely. Joshua and Ibo Town and parts of Serekunda during the rainy season. No-go areas. And there are so many other areas as well in this country. It is really during the rainy season that you see really how terrible this physical, as it were, road infrastructure really is. And that sort of thing. So obviously, and that Mboyo fields, the great ones, the Musa Barras and Yankuba Mintes, you see what you can produce if you have stuff like that. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So yes, it's a very significant development, as it were. You've got your list. How far have they gone? Exactly. Should they have been here? that sort of thing. Are we on target, as it were? And yes, then afterwards you have your follow through, as it were, and make sure that the ministers, whoever, they do their job.
Yeah, indeed.
That's what you want them to do.
Absolutely.
Really.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mboch. And that brings us to our final story. ECOWAS Parliament convened, I think, on the 1st of December in Abuja, in Nigeria, and they have quite a lot on their plate. Have a look and listen to this.
We reflect solemnly on the history of the parliamentary institution. This 25th anniversary celebration is a moment to reflect on the progress we have made, the strength of our values, and the prospect for our future.
Senator Barrow highlighted developments in the democratic landscape in the region, praising Cote d'Ivoire for its recent peaceful elections, and welcomed Guinea's upcoming December 28 election as a vital step towards restoring the constitutional order after the 2021 transition.
However, even as we celebrate these advances, we have been confronted with deeply troubling developments in Guinea-Bissau. The recent military coup is an unacceptable assault on democracy and a direct threat to regional stability.
Unacceptable assault on democracy, Mr. Mboch, and I said they have a lot on their plate. He talked there about the successes, and when we played this on the This Morning program, our colleague Ibrahim Abalde was like, they haven't done anything, what have they done? And I did challenge him on air, and I said, which country are you in? He said, what do you mean? I said, you're in the Gambia? He said, of course. I said, have you heard of ECOMIG? I said, that's an ECOWAS entity. So don't just say nothing they've done has been worthwhile. Yes, it has faced lots of challenges and continues, as we mentioned earlier when we were talking about Guinea-Bissau, and as they mentioned Guinea-Bissau there. So Parliament is sitting, but really, I think this time they are fighting for their relevance, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, there was a good reminder to Mr. Balda there. Can you imagine West Africa without ECOWAS?
Yeah, quite.
If you think that they're not doing much, now try imagining it without ECOWAS whatsoever. There's so much development, there's so much movement. It was really because of ECOWAS, one must recognize that. Indeed. Though we also see their shortcomings as well. He mentioned the Côte d'Ivoire. What happened in Côte d'Ivoire?
I was
that
shocked.
was a constitutional coup.
It really
We've had all sorts of coups, dynastic coups, ceremonial coup, constitutional coup, all sorts of
I deliberately left that in there because honestly, I was horrified when he mentioned Côte d'Ivoire as being a kind of, some kind of paragon of democracy or good governance, the fact that they were able to hold presidential elections. Yes, there was no extreme violence, but it was hardly a model that should be held up and celebrated. I was horrified.
That's it. That's really what the problem is. When you have, we've mentioned that political entities within, we are still really struggling to find our political feet. Let's be honest about that. So what can ECOWAS do, really? Where should be our remit? How do we approach this?
You have 45 seconds to tell them what they should be doing.
Well, that's above my pay grade. I admit it. True. Above my pay grade. But this is really the problem. When do you come in? When shouldn't you?
Sure.
And would I have been able to say anything in Côte d'Ivoire, given the stature of Ouattara within here?
Quite.
So it's difficult. But 25 years, still learning, still improving. Things can only get better.
Sure.
We are so down the bottom of the barrel, that I'll sound like Tony Blair. Things can only get better.
And the only way is up. Thank you for that, Mr. Bush. And also thank you to Lamidi Sonko for doing the signing. And of course, most of all, thank you to you, the viewers, for watching. Until we come your way again next week. Goodbye.